Hi folks, welcome to Time to Talk with Clare Steele. I've got to say I've been so excited about recording this podcast and talking to Clare about birds and bird dogs and just working as a falconer and working a dog and a bird together. It's just something that I've been so thrilled to be able to sit down for an hour and talk about. So get yourself a cuppa, settle down and listen to Time to Talk with Clare Steele. Take care, stay safe and enjoy the podcast. Bye. Hi folks, I'm here with the lovely Clare Steele from Waggy Farm and we're going to talk all about dogs and birds. I've got to say I've been really excited for the last few days about talking to you, Clare, because birds after dogs, birds and horses are my favourite things. And yeah, I love birds of prey. I've done handling sessions and things like that, and I just think they're so amazing. So you come from a long line of falconers, don't you?
Yes, so started with my granddad and has gone all the way through the generations. So every member of my family is a falconer, actually, including my children do falconry as well.
Oh my goodness, how old are your kids?
So now they are, so Freya, she is 13 and Bella is 12. So but they've been bringing the young birds on for us since they were young toddlers, really. So they've always been involved in it. And I've got lots of videos where Freya be sat with a bird doing homework and things like that. So it's just something that we've always been brought up with.
That's awesome. I mean, I can remember seeing Kes when I was a kid. And do you remember?
Yes.
I think that's where it started, you know, love of birds of prey. So you started really young.
Oh yeah, I mean, I cannot remember. I mean, I can never remember not having birds, to be honest, and my girls won't either. It's just something that we've always had in the family, and the collection's just grown over time, really. And the range of birds that we do is grown over time. So, but we absolutely love it. It's something that we're really passionate about, and something that we've always done. It's always been our family thing. So, it's important to carry on that tradition for us. And like I say, my brother's children, they do falconry. I mean, little Alfie, he's nearly 5 now, and he's starting to handle the birds and things. So it's just something that will always go down generations for us.
That's awesome. So have you got what kind of birds have you got? I know you've got birds of prey, but what what breeds?
We've got a big range because we have 86 in the collection. So we've got eagles, we've got falcons, hawks, owls, a wide spectrum. We've got hybrids, so crossbreeds. Carl, my partner, he runs a breeding program. So we breed birds for racing and abroad and things like that. So we have a very wide range of birds here.
Wow, what eagles have you got?
We've got golden and steppe.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting here like mouth open going, oh my God, you've got eagles.
Yeah, my dad, he's got a cara. He likes to do, he's taught that to do all sorts of tricks. They're very intelligent birds, so he's done all sorts of tricks with that one as well. But they're just brilliant, and I think if you can have them and give them an outlet for what they do in the wild, then I think that's how it should be. We're not ones for just keeping birds for the sake of it. I think they should have an outlet for the natural behaviours, the same as I think dogs should. So we thought to keep that. They are very much, especially when the young birds, very much part of our family. Before they fledge, they're roaming around the farm, just walking around the farm, getting used to everything. So they're around the dogs all the time from being young chicks, and they just roam around freely as they want to, until they start fledging, and then we start looking at putting a little bit of controlling, so we're not having to chase them around and start the training then. But before they start their training, they're free to just chill out on the farm and roam around, and they just follow us around.
Oh my goodness, that's just, my head's just going tick, 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 tick. So when I was little, I was a horsey girl. I was a horsey gal, and you see all of these I don't know how old you are, so I think we're a completely different generation, Claire, but I grew up on like Sunday afternoon matinee films, you know, Danny Kaye and Bob Hope and all the other, and Clive Blanc, so you probably got no idea what I'm talking about. But things like Danny Kaye, you know, and The Court Jester is what I'm thinking of, and you would see these really lavish productions and very, you know, musical and quite twee looking back on them, but amazing. And they would always have the gentry on horses with a bird on their arm, you see, a hooded bird on their arm.
Yes.
And the men would have these big manly birds and the women would have these little birds. And so where does all of that come from, before we move on to dogs and birds? But, you know, because I've always thought, oh God, it would be amazing to ride side saddle on a horse and have a bird on my arm. But
yeah, well, the thing is, hunting with birds has been done for years and years and years. I mean, it's a very, very old tradition. I mean, it would be your falcons that are hooded, because you keep their hoods on really until you're ready to hunt them. You know, it's a bit like a horse having its, I mean, I'm not the best with horses, I have to say, but it's like a horse having its little blinkers on, I suppose. When you see them, it's a bit like that. And then you sort of dehood them when they're ready for working. So that would be to keep the bird calm. That's why they have their hoods on.
Right.
But I mean, it's a very old tradition, isn't it, falconry? I mean, it's been around for a hell of a lot of years. Yeah. I mean, and it's the falconry community, I think, is, you know, it's a very, you know, people do share information and things like that. We find it a very friendly community, the falconry community, and people is always willing to give advice. I mean, we're certainly like that. You know, if it's a new person starting out, you know, and they're wanting some advice, you know, we give a lot of advice out to new starters, because I think it's important that they learn how to do it properly from the beginning, you know, because it is important that they're not just flown on a line. They do need to be flown free, you know, and it's important that people learn how to do that training, really. Same as with dogs, I suppose, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, start them right. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
So are all birds, when you take a bird out, are all the different types of birds hooded before you
No.
Just
falcons are hooded, yeah. Hawks are not hooded. Your hawks would, you know, they're more, especially your Harris hawks, they tend to fly, we fly them as a cast now, but they're very much a pack mentality, so they'll sort of follow the bird on, and they watch the bird very closely, and then obviously when the dog flushes, the bird will then come in and take over, but they very much work as a team.
Yeah, they're my favourite.
Are they?
Yeah, they might, because they've got the pack mentality, the same as dogs, and so for me, I can really relate to the Harris hawk in the way that I relate to dogs, because the hunting family groups, don't they?
The hunting family groups, and they're lovely. They are a lovely bird, and they're, you know, a good starter bird. So when our children start, that element of it, they always start with a Harris hawk. And then, so they'll bring them on until they're ready for hunting, and then we'll hunt them hard through the season, and then the girls can take back over until they're ready to be doing the hunting. Because obviously, once they get to that age, when they're ready to start killing and hunting, they need to have an outlet for that. So it's important that they get that outlet, you know, to steady them down and give them an outlet for that sort of behaviour. And then when the girls are at an age when they can actually do that part, then they do that. I mean, Freya came out with us last season. She's 13 now, and she loved it. So yeah, it's all part of it, really.
And so how old are the birds when they're ready to start going out hunting? How old are the birds?
Well, to be honest, again, I think it depends on the bird.
Okay, so it's the same with dogs, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
When your dog's ready, you take it out.
Yeah, they obviously need to be fully feathered, and they need to be, so it's a bit like a dog going into adolescence, I suppose. They sort of, you know, get a bit ready to, you know, to do a bit extra, and it does depend on the individual birds and how that's developed, really, because you don't want to put them out too soon and you don't want to leave it too long. So it is an individual bird thing, I would say.
Okay, so but oh my goodness, my head's just buzzing, Claire. I've not been like this interviewing somebody before. So you've got your young chick, and then he becomes a fledgling, and then you really start the training. And so what kind of training do you do with them?
Oh, well, that's so if you're bringing on a young bird, you would bring it on with an older, steadier dog. Okay, so we don't bring on young dogs with young birds, because obviously, you know, you're building confidence up. You don't want anything to be spooking a young bird, the same as you don't want to be spooking a young dog. So if you're bringing on a young pup, you'd be using an older, steadier bird, because there's a lot to get used to. I mean, there's the noises, there's the flapping, there's the fast moving, you know. So if you think about the things, and then you've got all your social element of it, so obviously the environment and things like that, and different people, and, you know, so there's a lot of elements. We take a hell of a lot of time over that. It's important to get that right. So we spend a lot of time feeding them together. So, for example, you'll have your birds sat on the glove feeding, and you'll have your little pups sat at the side of you having their breakfast. So, and we get them sharing food as well, so they become part of a team. So if we, you know, we've got some meat, and we'll put it in the dog's bowl, and then take it from the dog's bowl and give it to the bird. So they're sort of sharing. So they've got that mentality of sharing and becoming a team. We spend a lot of time just being nice and calm together, you know. So we'll often be sat watching telly, have our bird on one arm, dog settled at the side of us on the other, you know, so just chilling and not being over erratic together. But at the same time, birds have got to get used to dogs doing their wiggly, you know, moving, especially when they're young dogs, you know, because there's a big safety element to this. I mean, you know, it's not just people think about dogs injuring birds, but birds of prey cause a lot of damage to dogs. So, you know, you really don't want to have any issue from the beginning. So it's important that you take your time over these things and don't rush. That's the biggest problem I've ever seen with when things have gone a little bit wrong, is because people rushed it, you know. And I think it's taking your time to do all that work first is very important before you even think about going out with your dog and your bird. So I do a lot now. I mean, obviously, when I was growing up, there was a lot of the traditional methods of dog training. You know, that's how it was done, you know, when I was growing up. And then obviously since then things have developed. I mean, I do a lot of placement board training now with the young dogs, you know, and just teaching them to be still around the birds and things like that. So that development of them together is something you've really got to work on. They've got to have a super bond, you know, and they've got to be a lot of trust there before you can work them together.
So what about before you get to that stage though? So I'm just thinking, you know, when you've got a young dog and an older dog, and you make sure that both dogs are trained sufficiently before you then start bringing them together and working them as a team. Is that true? You do a lot of work with a bird before you consider bringing it to the dog, or is the education done alongside the dog, alongside the schoolmaster dog?
Yeah, so it's done alongside it. So if you say you've got your young pup, young spaniel or HPO or whatever, then we would be using the older, steadier birds that's got some experience of working with dogs anyway. Let's grow that dog's confidence. Yeah. Because you don't want one that's super duper noisy or anything like that. And obviously your imprint, so your hand raised birds, they are very noisy until they've been hunted hard, and then they start to quieten off. So you wouldn't want to be using a very noisy bird with a young puppy, you know, to start with. So you want a nice sort of well-rounded bird to be starting with, and it's going to be nice and steady. It's going to grow that puppy's confidence. But at the same time, that's how I would work with the, you know, a young bird and a steady dog. You don't want to have a young bird and a dog being all erratic around it straight away. Do you know what I mean? You've got to build that up. So that's how we do it. We would never do young dog and young bird. I think that's not so much, but it's sort of a bit of a misunderstanding, I think, that we've seen quite a few times, because people will get their bird and they get the dog and they're like, right, this is what we're going to do. But it's not. You know, if you want long-term success, it's important you either take your time to train your your bird first, or you train your dog first, and that, can you see what I mean?
Yeah, I do, because you need that steadying influence for a young animal, don't you? You need,
Of
like, if
course.
you take a young dog out shooting, not a young dog, rather a novice dog out shooting, you normally have an old hand sitting beside them that they
Yeah.
can watch and follow. You know, the older dog looks up in the air and the young dog goes, "What are you looking at then?" And then eventually
Yeah.
they cotton on that they're supposed to be looking up. So I suppose it's
Yeah.
that kind of thing, is it?
It is, yeah, it's very much that. I mean, we do pair, obviously, young puppies that come in, we'll pair them up with older dogs to learn them and things like that. But I would say, you know, certainly to anybody that's starting out with it, and do one and then do the other. So if if you're starting out in falconry, get to know your falconry before you start trying to train a dog at the same time, unless you know what you're doing with the dog, because both elements are very tricky, and it's something that takes a lot of time, and you need to take your time over it to make sure that there's no accidents when you're out and back. It's very fast when you're out there working. You know, your dog has certainly got to stop when you blow that whistle. Do you know what I mean? You don't want it running in on your birds and things like that. So, you know, it's important, because when it's all fast moving and that dog flushes and that bird's in, you need to know 100% that dog's going to stop, unless you're going to release it to go with the bird. So sometimes, because sometimes, especially falcons, can travel long distances. So some people will have their dogs running in with their bird. The bird will take the kill, and the dog will sit at the side, so watching over the bird, against predators and things like that. So the element of training, and that relationship, I mean, I can't say that relationship between that dog and bird, you know, has got to be so strong and trusting that before you even think about, you know, involving any sort of game or anything like that, because obviously pack mentality can take over if you're not careful, you know.
Yeah. And then you've got the whole resource guarding issue as well, haven't you?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's important to, you know, to take your time and work it through and make sure you've got all your training. It's like with your HPRs, your pointers, you know, you need them to hold a point for a long, long time. If you know, you cast your bird up and that bird's waiting on, you know, that dog's got to wait until that bird's ready to strike. You know, so they've got to hold for quite some period of time. If your dog's working at great distance, you know, sorry, that's the phone. You've got to be able to hold that point, you know, for a long period of time until your bird casts down to take the game. So there's a lot of steadiness involved, and there's a lot of making sure that they're definitely, you know, listening. We have trackers on the birds and the dogs as well. Because, like I said, they do travel. So the birds have little backpacks on.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah. So they have little backpacks on, because obviously they can travel some distance. So we always make sure they've got trackers on, and the same as the dogs do as well. And also fitness-wise, you know, your birds have got to be super duper fit. I mean, our falcons will train to a lure, and then they'll be trained to a kite and a road crow as well. So they've got to be super fit in terms of waiting on. You know, you can't expect them to do the job. It's like, you know, a runner trying to do a marathon before you've done a 5K. You know, you've got to make sure that your bird is super duper fit. So there's a lot of element of that involved as well. The same as your dog has to be fit too.
Yeah, no, I'm really hot on as you know, like age appropriate training, making sure the dogs are fit for purpose. You don't introduce them too young to things from a psychological perspective, but also from a physical perspective. We don't want to over stress the body, because then the dogs can't work correctly and they end up shortening the life of your dog. So you use loads of technical terms there. So I'm familiar with some of them, but people who are listening won't be. So the lure, that's what you start them on, and that's the thing that you kind of
swing.
Swing, and then is it or something when you release it? So you tell me about the lure, because I know people are starting to use lures and flirt poles with dogs.
Yes,
and they don't necessarily understand how they work. Certainly in relation to like HPRs, you would use a lure or a flirt pole very differently with a HPR to what you would with like a German Shepherd, for example.
Yes.
So how would you? What's the point of the lure for the bird as well as fitness? Because you just mentioned it from a fitness perspective.
Yeah, so what you do is you start teaching them to strike the lure while it's on the ground, to start with, and then you'll start building the height of that so they can learn to strike as the lure's up in the air.
Right. So it's teaching them to catch on the wing.
Yes, because if a parent bird was teaching a young bird, what they would do is the parent bird would go up, and drop the food, and the young bird would come in and catch it.
Okay.
So what we have to do is simulate that.
Right.
So we start on the lure by the striking on the floor, but then we need to make that higher so they learn to strike higher up. Then we can so then you'll be at the point where you throw your lure, you've probably seen that, your lure, strike in the air, but then we have a kite with a release mechanism on it, and so we can put the kite up and release the food up there, and the bird will go up to it.
Wow. Okay.
And then obviously you've got your road crows and things like that now. But that's how you get them. That's the point. So the lure is basically a starting point for us, and probably for a lot of people that do falconry. It's your starting point in teaching them the strike and the catch. Because they can be clumsy when they're first starting out. So it's just like dogs when they're all gangly. You've got so it's just a case of getting that precision, because obviously you want them to strike cleanly, from an ethical point of view. So we need to to train that in. Some birds are clumsier than others. So that's how we start that process off. So that's where the lure comes in for us.
God, that's brilliant. And have you, crikey, my head's just buzzing. So have you got a preferred breed of bird to work for you personally, or that you prefer training?
Yeah, I think everybody in the family's got all different ones, to be honest. I personally like goshawks.
Like what?
I like goshawks.
Goshawks, okay.
I like to see goshawks hunting because they are so, what's the word? Deadly is probably the wrong word, but they're so keen. They're like, they're on it, if that makes sense. They're very, you need to know what you're doing with a goshawk because they're very strong-willed, a lot of them, and it's certainly not a bird you'd start out with. If you're starting out, like I say, you need to be thinking more of a Harris hawk, to be honest. But goshawks, are very keen, and that me and Carl and my dad actually, we all like goshawks. But from a falcon point of view, I don't think you can beat a peregrine.
Okay.
So but Carl, he likes his jays. My dad likes his jays as well. So it's all it's personal preference, I think, sometimes.
I think it is. I mean, I can remember training at the cricket club years ago, and we put down. There was loads and loads of red kites and buzzards, and there was at the time they'd released some seagulls on Salisbury as well. So I can remember when I first moved to Wiltshire, I was driving along, and this blooming seagull came down and picked up some roadkill, and off it went. And I kind of went, "Oh my God, what on earth was that?" This massive wingspan. But we used to have the kites and the buzzards when we were putting down rabbit balls. They would come down, you'd put down a rabbit ball for a memory. By the time you got the other end of the field, the birds would come down and like so funny, the poor chicks, it's like you're supposed to bring me a rabbit and you brought me rubber. So funny. I absolutely love birds of prey. And have you got a preferred breed of dog to work with them?
I haven't got a preferred breed, to be honest, because I think they all have a different role to play. Do you know what I mean? With the bird, we don't tend to use retrievers. It's HPRs or spaniels. I mean, springers or cockers. Mainly been springers, to be honest. Like I said, I was brought up mainly with German short-haired pointers, but now we have 4 Vizslers.
Another Vizsla person. I seem to be surrounded by people who talk to me about Vizslas.
I love them.
Really?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. I think they're lovely. I think they're lovely dogs. They're good I think they're just a nice all-round dog, to be honest. That's what I like about them. They're nice natured. They've got a little bit of sensitivity to them, you know, which I think's nice. Well, it is when you're working with birds. You don't want, you know, a dog. You don't want a dog to be super duper strong. You want it to be, you know, be a bit of a team player. So, I do find.
So the HPRs would be perfect for that because they do a lot of hunting information as well, don't they?
Yes, yeah. So I mean, for us, like I say, it's mainly been the HPRs, but with Spaniels, it's been Springer Spaniels, English Springer Spaniels.
And
I've got a little Cocker that I'm bringing.
I think I trained. There was a falconer years ago in Tidworth, and I'm sure he used to use Brittany Spaniels. Is it Brittany?
I know quite a few falconers that have Brittany's. But we've never used them personally, but I do know quite a few that do.
Yeah.
And there seem to be that all around. It's just, I think it's just preference sometimes. Do you know what I mean? I think that's what it is. And like I say, we've always sort of, I've never not, it's only been in recent years we've not had a German pointer, to be honest.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've never, all my life growing up, we've always had a German pointer.
Long or short?
Short.
Okay.
Yeah, and we've always had them, and we've always had them. Because things have changed over the years. You see, when I was growing up, all our dogs were kennelled, you know, and got them out and we worked them, and they were kennelled. Well, all our visitors are inside. Do you know what I mean?
Isn't it?
So, you know, and they still can do the same job. You know, it hasn't affected.
Good to hear because, as you know, I've pushed and pushed pet gun dogs for years, and that you can have a really good relationship with your dog indoors and still work them. And there's still people writing books that are saying you can't have a relationship with your dog if it lives indoors. So it's that, you know, it's a bit. I mean, my little Cocker, she has she's got an internal kennel, so within the house. I don't have her in the main part, but because I'm working with her, she's a very young dog. She's, you know, very erratic. So we're working on that at the moment. So she does best to sort of, you know, to live in that way. That's better for her. But the Vizslas, like you say, all of those are indoors. Whereas I never had growing up. We never had any of our working dogs inside. No.
I mean, it's just not something that we would have considered, really. And to be honest, when I first started my dog training career, and like with the Cambridge Institute and things like that, I mean, when they were saying about that all the dogs were indoors, I was thinking, why would you have your dog inside? I thought it was all strange. You know what I mean? I honestly thought it was weird. I was like, you can't do that. So, but now all mine are inside.
It's funny, isn't it?
It shows that
got a better relationship with them, Claire, for being indoors.
Yes, I think especially with HPRs. Yes, I think with the Cocker, I think I have a better relationship with her. That she has I mean, like I say, she's still in the house, but she has a playpen area and things like that. She's running around in daycare at the moment in a sandpit. That's what she's doing at the moment. So she has a very active life. But yeah, so I think I do honestly think, especially like with the Vizslas, you know, I have, you know, they sit with me on a night time and watching, and I love that. And, you know, and when we're bringing on the young birds and we can sit and we can have the birds in there with us, and, you know, I think you have a lot more time with them because you spend time in the house, don't you?
I think it's a lot of pack bonding. I've only ever had my dogs in kennels when I lived in New Zealand, and it was because we were renting and the landlord wouldn't let the dogs inside. And I found it quite soul destroying, actually, not to have my dogs at my feet. And I don't know if you can remember Angus from the call.
Yes, I can.
And you know, he hated being in a kennel. He got quite depressed not being close to me, but he was an indoor dog before he was an outdoor dog. And,
right.
And he found it really difficult to be in a kennel, and I did as well, I must admit. I found it quite difficult having them in kennels. But I understand the cocker thing, having like an indoor kennel or a room away that the dog goes to, because they never stop, do they? They're constantly just either looking for attention.
No, I mean, I'm doing a lot of work. Yeah. I mean, I do a lot of work with her on just training her to be still at the moment, just be calm. But she's got, obviously, everything overstimulates her. So, you know, when it comes to pairing her with the birds and things like that, everything in the house is just so over-arousing for her. Do you know what I mean? And if I didn't have other dogs, we could just concentrate on her, you know, and you know, over a long period of time. Yes, obviously you can train it in and everything else, but for her, I just think for that particular dog, it's the best setup. Does that make sense? And she would get a lot more out of her training. And like, for example, like I say today, because we have a daycare facility that runs on the farm. My mum runs that, and our daycare it's not just a free-for-all dogs run around and everything else. We're not one of those daycares. But it's my mum's got a beach area set. My mum used to work in a nursery, so she very much sets it up as if she was setting up a nursery.
So all the stimulation, sensory stimulation.
There's a whole beach area out there. They've got a sandpit, water sprinklers. We've got a sniffy corner. So she's out there enjoying all the activities and learning her social skills with the other dogs and things like that. And then she'll get rid of some energy, and then I'll bring her out and do some training, some placement board training. I'll sit with her with the bird for a little bit. And do you know what I mean? So we structure the day like that. Whereas I find with my Vizzy, especially like my one that's 3.5, he's happy to be in the house, have a little blast, you know, on the big field, then do some work with birds. Do you know what I mean? And that works best for him, you know. So I think they're all individual, and I think you've got to adapt to that, haven't you?
You definitely have to adapt. I mean, I've had different. I've only very rarely had more than one dog of the same breed at the same time. I've always had different breeds in the house. And you do, you know, when you're handling a supercharged high energy dog, and then you put that lead down, and then you pick up a very calm but very sensitive dog, and then you put the lead down, pick a different type of dog up. And you definitely have to, you can only ever work with the dog at the end of the lead, and you've got to adapt your training style and your mannerisms and your energy levels as well to complement the dog at the end of the lead.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely no one size fits all. Clare, can I ask you, because although I'm absolutely passionate about birds of prey, and as I say, there's a World of Wings is just up the road from me, Cumbernauld, and I'm a frequent visitor, I'm a frequent flyer. Whenever I can get up there, I get up there, and they fly things like vultures, and it's just having a vulture down over your head, you know, is quite incredible. And I just find it absolutely fascinating, but I know nothing about working with them, or definitely not working with them with the dog. And I don't want to go on to dogs as well, because I know you do dog work away from birds as well, don't you? You do regular training as well. But before we go on to that, can I just ask you, what happens and how do you call it? Because I would say I'm going picking up, I'm going shooting. What do you call it when you're going out with your dog because there's no guns? And
we just say we're going hunting.
So you're going hunting, and how does it all happen? How does a day unfold? So if I was going picking up, you know, the beaters would go off first, and then they'd beat the birds forward, and the guns would stand because I do driven shoots, and then they would shoot the birds, and then the dogs would pick them up. And so how does the day unfold with the birds? Starting from you're getting in the car, what happens?
Right, well, you get in the car, but behind that, obviously, you make sure your bird was used to a car and things like that. So
we've got a fully trained dog and a fully trained bird. So we're not cutting any corners. We've spent ages developing the bond between the dog and the bird, and they're both trained individually and they're trained as a team.
Yes. So the first thing we do when this is how things have changed as well. See, traditionally, when we used to go out, you'd expect the dogs to go straight into the environment and be working straight away. Yeah, but what we tend to do a bit now is you get there and you just let them take in the environment a little bit. You know, let them settle in a little bit.
Calibrate yours.
Yeah, let's just, you know, take in the environment, think about what we're doing a little minute, get the silliness out, you know, and then start working. So I actually think that first initial part of settling in is quite important. And you tend to find you get a lot more kills if you allow that to happen. Yeah. So that's what we do when we first get there. So we just, you know, have the obviously the bird on the glove, and the dog will be sat at the side of us, and let them just take it all in. Yeah? And then, so depending on what you're working, so if you was working a falcon, obviously you've got to think of the weather and the thermals and things like that. So if you was working a falcon, you would send your bird up. Yeah, so you'd cast your bird up and let that start, you know, rising and things like that, and let it be waiting on. Yeah. Then you cast your dog off to hunt. So you'd let your dog be starting hunting. So if you was working a HPR in this instance, obviously you cast them off to hunt and let them get on with the job. Very much, we don't tend to interfere too much by that time. Obviously the dog knows how to hunt. You don't need to be over handling. Let them get on what they're bred to do. Yeah, I know I see a lot of people that like to handle, but I think it's important that you let them get on with it. Yeah, because they do know what they're doing by this point. And then what you do is your dog would come on point. Yeah, you'd then obviously be paying attention to what your bird's doing. So if your bird's ranged out a bit too far away from your dog, you want to be calling your bird in a little bit back closer. Yeah, so it's paying attention to what's going on a little bit.
Do you use a whistle for the bird?
So we whistle for the birds. Some we do. Some will use verbal.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's variable. So your dog would be on point. Yeah, you'd make sure your bird was ready, waiting on. Yeah, you'd then ask your dog to flush up. You would then send your bird in. And stop your dog.
Wow.
So it's got to be, but that's what I mean. See, it all happens very quick. Yeah. So you've got, it's, you know, it sounds when you're talking about it like it's all a very slow process.
Split second,
like a split second, but you know.
Wow. I mean, just the speed of the birds. I mean, forget how fast the dogs are. The speed of the birds coming in is just like, wow.
That stop has got to be a stop. Do you know what I mean? You don't want any. That's why the training element of that is so important. Do you know what I mean? Because if you think about that from a dog's point of view, you know, and their natural instincts, you've got a bird coming in at speed. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, any dog that, you know, got a tendency to chase and things like that, you've got to be sorting that out straight away, because you don't want that happening. Do you know what I mean? So it's got to be a stop. Basic. Yeah. Now, if I've got a dog there that's a keen retriever, you know, I will then let the obviously the bird get the kill, but then I might put a retriever out, you know, over there for the dog, you know, as a reward, you know. So because some dogs, they're happy just to hunt and point and flush. Do you know what I mean? That's their, but they just like doing that. But you get the odd one that really, really likes the retrieve. Yeah. So I think if you've got a dog like that, you don't want them to lose momentum with that. No. So then, you know, we'll put a retrieve out and let them have a little retrieve for all that work that they've done.
And then what do you do? So the bird's made the kill, the dog's got a retrieve. What do you do? Do you go over and take the kill off the bird, or what happens next?
Yeah. So with falcons, they obviously, and hawks, they have a crop. Yeah. So if you obviously you don't want them to be eating all the way through the day. Yeah. So what we do is we'd swap them back. So you don't take your kill away from your bird, because that's going to get you into trouble. Yeah. So what you do is you swap it. So we'd have the glove and have a little bit of food on the glove and swap it. Yeah. Yeah. So because, you know, especially a goshawk would have no problem with you, you know, coming and giving you a little jab just because you took its food off it. So you need to, you need to make sure that you've got that balance right, because they've got to trust you. So we do a little swapping. onto the glove.
Uh-huh.
And then obviously by this time your dog's done the retrieving, you've got the dog sat up at the side of you, and then you've got your bird away, and then you're ready to go off again.
That is amazing. So what do you hunt with them, Claire?
So depends on the bird. So the falcons, it's all your sort of game birds, so pheasant, partridge, depends what land we go to and things like that. With your hawks, we'll go rabbiting.
Uh-huh.
You know, because hawks and they'll have no problem with your rabbit. So with hawks, we tend to go out rabbiting with them.
Okay.
And it's all food for the birds. So that's what they're hunting for, the food, like the wood in the wild.
Uh-huh. And would you ever take, the pheasant and have it for your dinner as well, or is it going straight back to the birds?
No, we always give it to the birds, to be honest. They hit it so hard. It's...
Okay, so it would have to be casserole. You couldn't put it out like a roast pheasant. You'd have to chop it up and curry.
No, being hit at that speed's a bit, So, no, we tend to use it as bird food, basically. And any bones and things like that we give to the carriers.
Oh, wow, okay. So what about the eagles? Do you do any hunting with the eagles?
No, because we've not really got enough ground up here for the eagles, to be honest. We fly them, obviously, but we don't hunt with them here. You're in Scotland, aren't you? So you'll have loads of ground up there. But no, we don't. The eagles mainly is a breeding programme that we run with them. And we do fly them free, but we don't hunt them.
God, Claire, it's just amazing. I could just talk to you all day about birds. It's just awesome. So what do you do with, is there anything else you want to say about birds before I start talking to you about dogs? Although I'm sure I'll be back on birds in 5 minutes.
No, the only other thing I was thinking because obviously you've got the choice here with your stop. Now I said to you, you've either got your stop whistle there, or what you can do is let the dog go with the bird.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And the bird will strike and get the kill. Then you blow your stop whistle and your dog will sit up at the side of your bird. Okay,
but so is your dog still moving as the bird comes in for the strike?
Yeah, so it's like it's sort of alongside each other sort of thing. And then your bird will strike and you blow your stop. And that is a respect and a trust thing, is that? Do you know what I mean? Because, your dog's going to let your bird have that kill.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Do you know what I mean? And that dog's really got to listen to your stop whistle and say, actually, that's not yours. Do you know what I mean? So that's a real team effort, is that? It's so lovely to see that happen because that's such a respectful thing. Do you know what I mean? Especially like when, your bird's eating and you've got your dog sat up at the side.
Yeah.
I think it's lovely that.
It is, it's amazing. And the bond that between the dog and the bird and the respect between them to be able to do that. I've been on shoots where there's a bit of argy-bargy over birds, so when you're picking up at the end, you're sweeping up the field and two dogs get to the same bird at the same time and there's a bit of back off kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you can't have that with a dog and a bird because they would both be
Yeah, and that goes back. That's all about your early training and your time you spend with them as a team. That all comes from that element, and that's why it's so important to take your time over that.
My goodness! So how long would you be working the birds? Years, like year-wise. What's their working life consist of? So they go through adolescence and then you start training them and then you have them solidly trained, ready to start hunting. How long would the birds hunt for? Because generally we'll work dogs until, depending on breed, you can have a Labrador out for an occasional drive when they're 14, just to keep them happy and keep them contented. And so, how does that work with the birds? How long do they go?
However long the bird will go for, however long they're happy to keep going for.
Okay.
Basically,
on average.
Yeah. If they start to slow down, obviously, they live to a good. We've got some owls here that are 20-odd year old.
Wow.
Age-wise, but but you work them wherever they can work, because at the end of the day, that's what would happen in the wild. They wouldn't think, oh, I'm not going to eat anymore, so I'll just not bother. Do you know what I mean? So,
yeah, I do know what you mean. Not like the dogs. Not like the dogs. Come on, feast.
No. Yeah,
I didn't realise they had owls as well. Sorry, Claire, what did you say?
Oh, yes. Yeah, well, that's the thing with the birds. I mean, yes, obviously we're going to feed them if they don't get their own food, but, you know, you're working on the basis of what they do in the wild. So you want them hunting for their own food, really, don't you?
Yeah, definitely.
You know, to keep them occupied. So, yeah, but we have a range of owls. Always had owls.
Oh, how amazing. So do you do anything with them? Do you use them for displays, or do you, is it?
We used to do a lot of displays, but now obviously we've combined, we bought the farm, and we're doing mainly all of that now. So the owls obviously get flown every day. But training an owl from training a hawk and a falcon is quite different, because owls don't have a crop. So the food goes straight into their stomach. So your training time is very small, because they just get full very quick. Yeah,
too many treats and game over.
Yeah, they're like, no, I'm not moving now, I'm full. So which is fine. So they tend to be a little bit more stubborn as well, to be honest. But they're very sociable. I mean, you know, our girls, I've got pictures of my girls, you know, and they have the little dolly pushchairs, and they've got the little owl babies sat in there, and they're walking them around, and, you know, it's always good at show and tell. You know?
I bet. What have you got? Oh, here is an owl. And I've got a little hamster.
Yeah, but it's, you know, but I think it's a brilliant experience for children. You know, the education side. I mean, we've always been big on the education side of things. We've always gone into schools and educated children on birds of prey, and, you know, because like I said to you before, it's very important to us that you don't just have a bird for the sake of it. Do you know what I mean? A lot of ours are rescues, you know, where people's took them on and they're not quite sure what to do with them, you know. So we don't just buy them in and keep them in captivity. The welfare of them is very, very important, and that's always been a strong thing within our family.
No, that's amazing. I think we're pretty blessed in this country because we've got such a range of native birds of prey, and I think we are so lucky and so with the range that we've got and the size, you know, going from the tiny wee owls all the way up. I did, as I say, I do like going to watch these bird of prey displays, and there was one that I went into years ago, Tidworth, and I can't remember the organisation down there. It's in Andover. It's a really big bird of prey centre, and they did at Christmas they did Owls by Moonlight, and that was fantastic. And it was a night moonlight, so it was a nighttime event in the winter. It was bloody freezing. They had the owls coming out by moonlight. It was just like a couple of spotlights, and that was amazing. And they did it to classical music, and it was so eerie because you can't hear them, and they're just like ghosts appearing on the field. It was stunning. And I've handled eagle owls.
Yeah.
So I do like owls. I just love birds of prey. I'm so I'm not normally this scatty, but I'm like, oh my god, this is so good. This is so cool. So, I know. I could just sit here and go, tell me about birds. They're awesome. So what about the dog side? So you do things away from the birds as well?
Yes, I do. So I do behavioural consultations. I have general pet dog classes. I have a pet dog class, but then I have a class for working breed dogs. So they can have an outlet for that. So they're just pet dogs, pet dog owners, but it gives the dogs an outlet for natural behaviours. So basically, we train them as, you know, as gun dogs. They might never want to go on a shoot or anything like that, but the dogs just enjoy it, which is what it's all about, isn't it? Really,
it is. You know, most dogs, even if they go picking up or beating, you know, pretty much most of the year, 95% of the year, they are pets, and you have to get them, train them in the way that their breeding dictates, and it
Yes.
makes them much more contented, doesn't it?
Well, yes, definitely. Well, it came about this because I was seeing a lot of behaviour cases. There was actually frustration from dogs that didn't have an outlet for natural behaviours, and then this is how it came about with the class for doing that, because it wasn't really a behaviour case as such. It was just more frustration from the dog.
Yeah.
Can you see what I mean? And educating the owners on what the needs of the dogs are. So that's how that came about. And then it was the same with the daycare, actually, because on here, you see, we've got fully enclosed paddocks. We've got goats and chickens and things like that. So we get the dogs used to livestock and, and that type of thing. So if there's dogs that have problems around livestock, we've got some milk-fed goats and things like that. So they're very dog friendly, actually. They can walk on a lead, actually. My daughter's trained
on a loose lead, I hope.
With a clicker. Yeah, it was quite funny. They're shaking the buckets. Goats are walking around, but yeah. So I think it's important that obviously as part of training, not just for working breeds, but all pet dogs get used to livestock and things. So that's as part of it. And then I've got a large indoor training facility as well, so we can train indoors and outdoors. And then I've got the daycare facility that runs on here. And like I say, that is set up to provide a lot of mental stimulation for the dogs. So they come and they get their social skills. Obviously, I've assessed the dogs in advance before they come in, so I know what they're like from a personality temperament point of view, so we can match them up appropriately. I get a lot of working breeds that come, so they're very sort of busy little dogs. So that's why we've got the digging pits and we've got the water, and there's all sorts of different activities we set up for them while they're here, and they can enjoy having a nice day. Then some of them will have a training session while they're here. So I'll do one-to-one training sessions, either with the owners or I'll do it with the dogs, and I video record it and set homework for the owners. So we do quite a lot of different things on the farm, but it's all done as a family. Like I say, my mum, she does daycare with my sister, Kelly, and Carl, he runs the breeding programs with the birds, and he flies the birds alongside my dad, and then me and my dad, we do the training together.
God, that's amazing. And whereabouts are you based, Clare?
We're Lincolnshire way. We're Gainsborough.
Okay, that's great. And
so,
and do you I'm assuming by the nature of the work, all your dog bird work and your lessons is all one-to-one. Do you do lessons for people with their birds? Do they bring their birds to you and you do lessons with them?
Oh yes, yeah. So we definitely will have people that have birds, and they're either wanting to do some work with the bird, or they've got a bird and they're wanting a dog, and they're wanting to learn how to bring their dog on. We do that. So we do all that element of it as well. We do programs where the dogs will come in and stay in with us, either with the bird work or with the training side of things, and we do videos for the owners and things like that, so the learning carries through, and handover sessions. So we offer quite a range of things on the farm, really.
Great.
Yeah, so we really, and it's lovely to work as a family, and all do it together. It's nice that.
I think that would be really good. So do you do taster days as well? So for people like me who's just got this real interest, I love my gun dogs, but I've got an interest in birds as well. Do you do anything like that where people can come along with you as you work your dogs, so get an insight into it to see if it's something they'd be
it's not something we've offered previously, but it is something we're looking at doing. I mean, the plan was obviously this winter, but with obviously all this lockdown situation, we're not quite sure how that will pan out. But our plan was to do something like that this winter. But if we can't obviously do it this winter, then we'll do it next hunting season and do it like that. But yeah, because I do think people will like to come and see. I think it's nice for people to see the dogs and birds working together, because it's nice and natural, and that, I think it's nice for people to see that and understand that.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, certainly from a dog trainer's perspective, I can remember going on my first falconry day, you know, because I started at Centre Parks when my son was a baby, so it must be about 23, 24 years ago now.
Right.
First handling experience at Centre Parks, and just talking to them and the way that they work with the birds, you know, is a great. It's a real insight into like conditioning, you know, like true conditioning, because going back then, the gun dog trainers weren't always the gentlest of trainers.
Yes. Yeah.
And so to see somebody handle a bird in a way, because if you can't get cross with the birds of prey because they just kind of take off, don't they? And
Oh, yeah.
and so it's, I think for anybody who's looking to train dogs, they could learn a lot from like falconers, really, because of the relationship that they have to develop with the bird and the way they handle the bird, and just you know, the timing of the rewards and the phasing of the rewards. And so as a dog trainer, I found it really, going back all of those years, I found it quite not mind blowing, but not far off. It's like, oh my god, the timing is absolutely spot on, and
Yeah.
you know, and the timing of, will we let them have the lure this time or will we not let them have the lure this time, and kind of phasing that out as well,
Yeah.
progress the bird and extend their training.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the dog world, and I don't know if you will agree or not, but what I find is at the minute, definitely an over reliance on treats.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you totally agree then. So what's happened is the pendulum has swung from being very firm with dogs and making dogs do as you want them to do, and we've gone too far the other way now. We've gone too far,
yeah.
constantly feeding the dogs, and I think a lot of it comes from and not just people but trainers as well, is they don't see the training all the way through. So they might go to a couple of classes with a really well-known trainer, and so they're learning the timing of treats, but what they're not doing is hanging around for the end of the course where they're learning how to phase the treats out appropriately and replacing it with like smiles and tickles and
yeah. I tell you what I find now, I suppose the best way to describe it is, I don't see many teams around. It's more, you like a feeder. Like it's just the dog's only doing it for
the food.
Mm-hmm. No, there's no. They're like, it's not. In some situations, it's not even a relationship. No. It's like almost as if no relationship has been created because of it. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's the dog. The dog's just in the mindset of, what can I get out of this?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And when is she going to give me that sausage? Do you know what I mean? Rather than it being a team, you know, respectful thing where, you know, you're part of this team together, which is what with birds, I mean, that's your number one thing. You know what I mean? You've got to have that trust. You've got to have that relationship. It's the thing that you start off with. Yeah. And you know, it's that caring element, you know, when they're a tiny little chick and, you know, you're bringing them on and they're relying on you and you're caring for them. Do you know what I mean? It's not just because you're constantly shoving food in. You're giving them, you know, exposure to lots of different things, and they've got to trust you that that's okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Not just because you're feeding them.
Yeah.
So and what I see a lot of now, I don't know if you do, is like spoiled brat syndrome, where the dogs are just barking or pawing or
biting.
Attention-seeking behaviour just to get a treat.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about a lady called Dee Stedman a lot in my books. You know, I'm constantly saying, you know, Dee taught me this, Dee taught me that, and Dee taught me balance, because I was trained by a behaviourist in New Zealand who's no longer with us now, Noel Hutchinson, and he did nothing with food. He didn't use any food and he didn't use any toys, and it was all about building that relationship. But and because I did competition obedience as well as gun dog work, and so when I came home, I was still very much in the mindset, if you don't use food and you don't use toys to train, And then I met Dee Stedman, because I did try it, when I was in New Zealand. I worked with a clicker trainer as well, and I just found it was too much food, and I found that the click I got in the way of the relationship that I had with my dogs. And when I took Bart, my lab, with me to New Zealand, and the first thing they did was give me some mince to train with, and Bart had never been food trained, and his mind just went boom, and he turned into an absolute delinquent with the food training. And so I pulled back on the food training, and I found it very difficult to find that balance of being positive but not being permissive. And it was Dee Stedman, she's a ticket handler. She's competed with Crufts with her dogs, the most phenomenal handler. And she helped me understand the importance of balance between food and toys and energy and rewards, and that you can have food rewards and still have really, really strong, immovable boundaries. And that was the missing piece for me, see. So I'd gone with somebody who was all about boundaries with not an awful lot of positivity, and I'd also been with somebody who was all about positivity and very little boundaries. And Dee, for me, was that missing link. She who taught me you can be positive, but you can still have boundaries. And so I class myself as a positive but not permissive. I'm a positive trainer, but I am not permissive.
I think that's a good way of explaining it, to be honest, because I mean, like I said, obviously, I was brought up, the old-fashioned dog training ways, because that's how it was when I was young. And you certainly, wouldn't want your dog to be running in on your bird and things like that, so there was it was a no messing approach, and that's how it was always seen as being done. But obviously, since I've developed over the years and learned more about behaviour and things like that, and learned new ways of training, I don't know how to explain it, but I've sort of just moulded away my ways, if you know what I mean. And but I do agree in the fact that, and I think as well, it's looking at what is a reward to that dog. So for example, my little cocker, she's out and about. She's not interested in sausage or cheese or anything like that. She just wants to hunt.
Yeah.
And she hangs off my words. If I say to her she's a good girl, she's like, oh my God, she says I'm a good girl.
Yeah, I do that. I go, who's a good dog? And the pair of them come running over and sit.
Yeah. To her, that's like the most important thing. And I've built that up, But if I tried to hand her a sausage, she'd be like, why are you trying to give me a sausage?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'm busy hunting. So it's like you've got to, but whereas like with my busy, he'll do anything for a sausage. He's like, that's his ultimate thing.
Yeah.
When he was trained, now it's not, it's retrieving, but when he was a young dog, that was his biggest thing. So I think you've got to look at the individual dog and think, right, what is important to that dog? Do you know what I mean? Because it's not just a breed thing, it's an individual dog thing, you know, and what is their ultimate reinforcer? And then build your bond and your relationship around all that as well. Do you know what I mean? I think it's sort of like a mountain to climb it. Do you know what I mean? But you just got to take your time over it and understand your dog. And I think whenever people just looking at food, they're not looking at the dog.
They're not. And I had, like Angus would really like a neck massage. So if he did a good job, I used to give him a really, really firm neck massage, and he was just melting with it, Yeah. I think as a trainer of other people, like yourself, I think it's easier to get people to get the concept using a bit of food, when they're first training a safe food and down. So when you're first introducing an exercise, it's easier to teach somebody else to train their dog using food to do that exercise.
Yeah.
But the thing that then a lot of people miss is not getting rid of the food. Use the food as a lure to start off with, then use it as a reward, then use it as a distraction, and then use it intentionally. And people they're not, and I don't know if it's because they're not seeing the whole courses all the way through, or there's too much social media influence.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
And I think there's a lot of
the dogs. It's not.
No, and I think a lot of it is what I see a lot of is treating them for nothing.
Oh yeah.
They're I mean, from a working dog point of view, they want to do something, don't they, for everyone? Do you know what I mean? But I see a lot of people just treat him for no reason whatsoever. Do you know what I mean? So, but because they're doing that, they're forgetting to give the dog a little stroke, or, do you know what I mean? Chill out with them a little bit.
Gets in the way.
They're so focused on putting treats into their mouth, they're missing that. So, that bonding element of having a dog, I think.
And the little nuances of behaviour as well, it's just like a look, a smile, a tickle, just that lovely eye contact with love. You your dog and just,
I mean, over the years, I mean, when I first started, like I say, when I first started the Cambridge, I mean, the fact that people even had the dogs inside was strange to me. So I've sort of had to come, I've gone sort of all the way through it, and I've had to sort of find my way through it. And there's some things where I think actually I don't agree with that, and some things I think I do agree with. But I think it's finding your way through it all and getting the right balance for the dog that you're training. I think that's. I mean, obviously, I don't use any of the traditional methods anymore. But I'm also on the mindset that there's a lot of the situations now where people are afraid to say no to the dog.
Yeah, I know.
And you see a lot of behavioural problems because of that. Do you know what I mean? So I'm sort of very aware of that as well.
And it's difficult as well, because on social media, if you speak out and you say, well, you should really be saying no to your dog. Oh, I can't say no. And then you have this massive warrior lashback. She's saying no. She's saying she's really evil.
Yeah. All of a sudden, you're a negative trainer just by saying no.
I know, it's mad.
Yeah, it is something that I've sort of struggled with over the time, in sort of getting how you come across as well, because like I say, people are so quick to pull you down for it now. And I don't think teaching your dog that no is no and having some boundaries is negative. I think actually it's helpful for the dog.
I mean, it is, because dogs are intrinsically pack animals, and people will be going, oh my god, it's not a dog pack anymore. The whole thing about you're not your dog's owner or your dog's leader, you are your dog's guardian, which is something that I find, like, actually, according to the law, I own my dog. I would actually take really good care of my dog, because not only because I own it, but because I'm in charge, which makes me the leader. So I find the whole semantics about it very difficult. But when you look at a dog's intrinsic behaviour, it's part of a pack, and any animal that lives in a social group will have a hierarchy and will have rules to that hierarchy to make sure that the pack survives. Because if there was no rules, it wouldn't survive.
No, and if you live in a multi-dog household, you can't just go letting them all do what they want. It's not a free-for-all. You don't. I'd have a lot. Can you imagine? With all mine, I mean, HPR spaniels. I'd have all on kids, birds. I'd be like.
But they do. I mean, I've seen dogs that jump up. I mean, I saw Working Cocker once. I was sitting talking to the owner. She brought the biscuits out. Next thing I knew, Working Cocker in the centre of the dining table, eating the biscuits. And I went, oh, so this is the problem.
I have to be honest, I'm a lot better at training dogs and birds than I am children, though. I'm working on that. But I find dogs and birds easier.
Oh, man, I know, especially at the minute. It's been such a joy talking to you. I'm conscious that it's I could keep talking to you for another hour easily. We've been chatting for an hour, believe it or not, but I could easily talk for another hour.
Well, you can always come and see us sometime. You know that, so
Thank you. I was holding on for you to say that. Oh my goodness!
I didn't know what. I was a bit nervous because I don't do things like this normally on the internet and things. So I didn't know what to expect, but I've enjoyed it. So
good. I'm really glad. And Claire, it's just been joy, honestly. Birds of prey. I would love to have a bird of prey. I would love to have a Harris hawk.
Well, get yourself set up. We'll help you.
We haven't got the room or the land or anything. I mean, I would love to. I mean, Tinto's, which is one of the Graham Hills, is only about 6 mile. And so where I used to live in Wiltshire, we were constantly having kites and buzzards over the house, you know, whereas here, because we've got Tinto, I don't see as many of the birds of prey because they're all over at Tinto hunting and thermals, you know, and so I really miss them. But I do go up to Cumbernauld and get my fix every couple of months and just sit and watch the birds of prey and watch the displays. And
it's such a lovely thing to be able to get to a point where you've got your dog and your bird and yourself working as a team. It's nice to be part of a team. Do you know what I mean? And when you're out there and you're all working together, I think there's nothing better than that. Do you know what I mean? For us as a family, because the dog's got an outlet for natural behaviours, the bird's getting an outlet for natural behaviours. You're there as part of the team of it. Do you know what I mean? And I just think it's
so primal. I mean, it just takes us back to where we're really, doesn't it? It's just like this is it.
But like I say, what I would say, if anybody, you know, is wanting to start out with it, just make sure you get all the information, make sure you do it right, take your time over it, learn. Don't just jump in and think, oh yeah, I want a bird, I'm doing it. Take your time over it, get some advice and learn how to do it properly so that both your dog and your bird just get the right outlet for the natural behaviours, because that's the key thing.
Yeah, that is great advice. I mean, I've hankered after Harris Hawk for like 20 years, but it wouldn't be fair on the bird. It wouldn't. I haven't got the setup for it. I'll just keep getting my fixes elsewhere, and I'll definitely. I will definitely come down at this point and see you. It'll just be amazing. Claire, thank you so much. It's been so educational, and it's just been a joy talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been
Take
lovely.
care and stay safe.
Yeah, same to you.
Enjoy. Thanks, Claire. Thanks for coming in. Thank you.
No worries. Bye.
Bye-bye.